Hi SwitchUp family, I woke up this morning and was like, I know what everyone needs. They need an extra sales video in their week. And then I had an email from a mate over at Untold Tales and he was like, hey, we got a load of these brand new games. Do you want to choose your favourite 10 as well as give away a load of codes? And I was like, yeah, alright, that sounds like a plan. So thanks to those guys for sponsoring this episode and apologies in advance if you're about to add something to your backlog. Now if you want to win one of these, just let us know down in the comments which is your favourite. I have an inkling as to which it's going to be and it involves milking. Oh. So, what are the best games on sale from Untold Tales? Well, let's find out. Now it's worth mentioning that some of these will have an owner's discount which brings an even deeper sale. We'll reflect that on the screen with a nice little symbol that says something like owner's discount. But first up we have the lovely Everdream Valley, which is essentially Animal Crossing meets Stardew Valley, and it has a game where you can milk the cow, which is quite possibly one of the funniest things I've ever walked into as my daughter was playing the game. You start out by trying to build up the farm, improve it, till the land, fix fences, and there are lots of different missions which are kept in a handy journal. This is massively rated over on Steam. I think it has a 9 out of 10 rating still, and that's mainly because there's just so much to do. If you're a fan of these games, then you have to understand it is from a smaller team than something like Animal Crossing, but they're constantly working on it, adding new features, new items, and it is super chill. I had a really enjoyable time and there's a very large map to work through. Now it has a launch discount of 20% that's continuing, or 40% if you own another Untold Tales game. All the details to those will be seen at the bottom of the screen. Next up we've got Arise, a simple story, the definitive edition. Now it's currently 75% off until July the 25th. It's a bit of a walking simulator interspersed with some puzzling, but it's one of those experiential ones. I don't know if you've played a game called Old Man's Journey, but it did remind me of that. It's very emotive. The whole thing is within a 3D world as well, and it has a lovely original soundtrack. Now interestingly, there's actually multiplayer with this one as well. I believe there's a 1 or 2 player co-op, and the way that works is that they actually have some ability to control time. It's one of those that you can just pick up and play, and at 75% off, definitely one to consider. We've got Game Deck, the definitive edition. Now if you weren't aware, the developers actually released a brand new free update that included new story content. It was then repackaged as the definitive edition, but they didn't charge anything extra for it. This one is currently 83% off in both the US and the EU regions, and it's very cool. You might wonder what a game deck is. Well, essentially they have to go into people's virtual worlds, their virtual games, or the MMO style experiences they live in, and then they have to solve a crime. So someone might have got murdered within this virtual world. Now what's cool about it is that each of those is very different. One of them will be like a Blade Runner style futuristic world, and there's like very strange avatars that some people have. And then another one will be like a Wild West theme, and it reminded me of the series Westworld. If you're a fan of adventure games, there are lots of choices to make, and there's a system that runs throughout it that will determine the ending of the game based on the decisions you've made. Next up we've got the Hong Kong Massacre. This is essentially John Wick, the game, and it's 90% off in America and 95% off in the EU. Obviously inspired by classic action movies, it's a story of revenge. This is one that involves slow motion and shotguns. You can slow down time, a la bullet time of old Max Payne, and this allows you to then hopefully dodge the incoming bullets. Lots of diving through glass and non-stop action. Very fun little action arcade game and a bit of a barjan. Flamekeeper is a lovely little roguelite, and it currently has a 58% off sale in both America and the EU. Now this is a roguelite that I'm sure we reviewed on the channel, it might have been Asdin, but he really enjoyed it. Now it is almost still a bit work in progress in terms of, I think the developers are still working on more content for it, but on each stage you're essentially looking around, trying to find the energy and then restoring that eternal flame. But that energy also acts as your health when you pick it up. By all accounts this is really fun, and we do hope that they add a bit more content to it. I think it took Asdin around 5 or 6 hours to finish. It is single player only and a measly 1.7 gigabyte download. Beautiful Desolation really does suit my style of games. It reminds me of playing PC games back in the day, and I think this is from a South African team. It's definitely set in South Africa, I think. It's a top-down adventure game with a few different choices to make, but I love that art style, that hand-painted look. You don't need like a stupidly strong 3D engine or any of that stuff to make a game that looks good. Kind of reminds me of the old school Commandos titles in terms of that art. Now, right now you're looking at a 90% discount. That's in the US regions, or a 95% discount in the EU. There are over 80 different screens, and if you've played one of these games, you know that each of those screens is so intricately painted, and obviously you're moving around on top of that. It has a lovely 18-track soundtrack, and you kind of get to decide whether you help or hinder the inhabitants of this apocalyptic South African world. There are little puzzles to solve, dialogue trees, and some interesting voice actors in there as well, in fairness. I think there's about 40 different characters. You'll probably know straight away whether you like this style of game. And it's a fun one. There are a few areas that I didn't enjoy as much, but it was still definitely worth playing through when I bought it at full price. So 90 or 95% off, I mean, that's just, yeah, it's a given really.
All just to find a way back home. Be prepared to face many tough choices that will shape this life.
Space Cows is a bona fide hidden gem. It's really fun to play, and it's cheap to begin with. It's only $7.99 in America, but it sees an even bigger reduction. It's part twin stick shooter and part, I don't know, what would you call it, like a physics platformer, but you're not really platforming because you're tackling and battling against gravity as you fly around firing plungers. There are mini games in there as well where you have to milk your way through them. Untold Tales, you really do enjoy milking. And you're on an adventure to try and not leave a single cow behind. I had a right laugh with this, didn't expect it at all, and it's as ridiculous as it looks and in the best possible way. If a physics-based twin-stick shooter set in space featuring a milky cow appeals to you, then do consider this one at the nice chunky discount you can see at the bottom of your screen.
Regards to Pepsi and save cows in this.
Now, What Lies in the Multiverse is an interesting one. It's currently 50% off in all the regions, and it's another one that carries a pretty decent 9 out of 10 rating, very positive on Steam. You'll essentially have to harness the power of parallel universes, and you can do that literally mid-jump. That'll then turn deadly falls into tunnels that you can go into, and enemies into pleasant friends and acquaintances. I love mechanics like this. I don't know if you've played The Messenger, where you could switch between those two 8 and 16-bit styles, but that would also change the game. Here you're moving across different pixel art worlds, and you're joined by a charismatic but hopeless scientist called Everett, who tries to help you, but is a bit of a disaster. It's light-hearted, it's very fun, and it's certainly worth it at half price. Let's jump over to Golf Club Wasteland. Now, I love post-apocalyptic things, and you take golf and you stick it in that environment and it's a win for me. If you then use that well as like a physics-based puzzler combined with an adventure game, then it's like a double win, especially at 80% off in the American regions and 90% off here in the EU, taking it down to a measly 89 pence. I mean, you couldn't actually buy a lake ball for that. If you know about golf, you know what a lake ball is. It's a ball that's gone in a lake. But for 89 pence, they'd laugh in your face and say, go home, get 11 more pence and come back. You'd walk off, tail between your legs, ballless. Oh dear. So this one's actually 3 different tales pieced together into one coherent game. It's got a very unique soundtrack as well, not something you usually hear. And if you wanted just a more casual experience, if the challenge was a little bit too high, then you can actually just play story mode. But you don't want that. You want challenge mode, which is, it's nails at certain points. Very tricky, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Take my hand.
Piece together the whole picture from various sources like Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
You're listening to
My last pick then, before we throw a few at you that are equally cheap but in a quick-fire style, you've got Dex. I don't care what anyone says, for me this is like exactly how I like my games. It's a 2D side-scrolling open world cyberpunk choice-based adventure, and look, it has a few clunkier aspects, but it's really good, and if you actually take the time to work your way through its story, it is more than worth 90% off or 95% off here in the EU. That's just crazy. Sometimes you'll have various different methods through which you can progress, and it has a full English dub as well. And in terms of that gameplay, sometimes you'll use stealth, sometimes you'll go all guns are blazing, and others you'll try and talk your way out of it and probably fail and have to go all guns are blazing. Yeah, I know loads of you have played this one, and there are quite a few that haven't. Let people know what you thought of it. Maybe you loved it, maybe you didn't. I'd be quite intrigued to see how you got on with it. I know it's quite old school in some of its aspects.
I wish there had been another way. But please trust me when I say this is worth it.
Let's see what's in your pockets, girl.
Welcome back, miss.
You got Tools Up, a fun co-op game with a lovely little discount. Badland Game of the Year edition. This can be played solo or with friends. Down 66% in America or 84% in the EU. Aspire Ina's Tale, which kind of reminded me of Gris and has a lovely look to it. Quite an emotive adventure at 85% off. The co-op top-down twin-stick shooter Splatter Zombie Apocalypse, which is very difficult. That's 75% off. Little Racer also has a chunky percentage off at the moment. A fun little racing game. And then finally Lumberhill, another multiplayer party game, but this time you play as a group of lumberjacks, travelling around the world on your own or with a group of mates, cutting down trees. It's actually fun this, but you will have to have some teamwork skills, and if you don't, yeah, maybe this one's not for you. Put the axe away, send the kindling home. And I'm going to cheat and by way of a bonus add in Atone, Heart of the Elder Tree as well. This went under so many radars, and I'd say it does class as a hidden gem. It's all centered around Norse mythology, but get this, it has a weird rhythm-based mechanic, which is tied to the combat system. Now, yeah, there's a really strong emphasis on the story and the narrative, but there are puzzles in there as well, and that music-based combat is quite a surprising twist, and Australian artist Luminist did a great job of blending that synth style with what sounds like, I don't even know how to describe it other than to say like corruption. As always, if you want to save a bit of money on your eShop credit, you can go to switchup.gg, where you'll always get 5% back in SwitchUp tokens, and it supports us a little bit as well, which is very kind of you. But thanks to all of you, our Patreons and our members. You guys support us each and every month, and you get a little emoji thing that my brother designed. And anyone that leaves comments, you are literally supporting the channel and pushing and poking buttons and stuff. Thanks to Untold Tales for sponsoring this one. And as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!